All right, hello there, Doug with Yaskawa, and I've got Trent. He's part of our aftermarket team here at Yaskawa. And so, Trent, we're getting into um, the shutdown season here. So a lot of people are wondering, what do we have to get ready for? What do we have to do? What's the right time to start getting prepared for this? Take us through that from a robotic standpoint.
Sure. Thanks, Doug. Yeah, and one of the things that we get these questions a lot, and the best time to start preparing for that is if you're wanting on-site service by a third party or by Yaskawa, you want to prepare for that at least 6 months in advance because
6 months.
those
Okay.
shutdown personnel, they book up pretty quick. And as far as if you're doing the PMs yourself, 3 months is a good time because you want to make sure
Okay.
you have all the parts, especially if you're looking at replacing some of the internal consumables such as um, uh, wiring harnesses or even controller fans. Because at times, sometimes people will go through where they do a whole line of their automation, and at that point, we get a little bit of a run on those parts. So you want to make sure that you're at least 3 months out on ordering your PM materials, making sure your plan is set up, that sort of thing.
Okay, so brief recap. 6 months prior when you start planning for it, and about 3 months prior for ordering those parts.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. If you're planning on having Yaskawa support on site, I recommend a minimum of 6 months in
Okay.
advance for to schedule that through your regional technical manager.
Okay. That is great info. Thank you very much for that, Trent. So Trent, now that we know when to start planning and scheduling and ordering those parts, can you talk to me a little bit more about Yaskawa's preventative maintenance plan?
Sure, sure. Yaskawa has a couple plans. The first being the annual service, and I'll go to that in a second, and then the extended service, which is the annual service plus some additional services. Annual service is first and foremost, we come in, we'll lubricate the robot, change the grease or add grease primarily. We'll go through, check the controller, check the fans, check the overall condition. I mean, there's a comprehensive list of things that we check. Just like if you were sending a car in for service or something like that, they have to go through a checklist. Our technicians that will go through that checklist on that robot and then provide feedback at the end of this. If there was any findings, anything felt off, something like that. And one of the advantages is Yaskawa does not use third-party service for this. We actually have factory-trained technicians that deliver this service. So you have somebody that has been trained on specifically on our equipment to do these and to recognize and potentially offer recommendations if there is something discovered while they're on site. So one of the other advantages to having the Yaskawa service is the predictive maintenance portion of that, and that's where we'll take the grease sample on drives that have rotary vector or cyclo drives, and we'll send that back to the factory, and they'll do a grease sample, and we can determine if the iron content in that grease is at a high level, so that is it something that we need to start looking at? Is it something we need to potentially schedule service for? So you have that predictive tool, and if you do that year over year, the advantage of that is that you can actually see the actual how your robot is going through its cycle, potentially if there's one axis that seems to be getting worse and worse. Not only can you schedule to fix that, but you might have the opportunity also to go back and remediate that, find the root cause of what is causing that too, so that you can, hopefully mitigate that for the future. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and these are excellent points because these are points that I stress to new robot users when they're like, "Hey, what does that preventive maintenance schedule look like?" And they're like, "What's?" And a big question is, how do I get my maintenance guys trained to do the preventative maintenance? And the first thing I try to encourage them to do is saying, "Hey, listen, it's going to be a while before you really have to do some major work. That really the ideal situation is to get our team, to get you and others involved with the people that are doing this on a regular basis to know exactly what they're looking for, make those right, those grease analysis checks to be able to figure out, hey, how is the robot being used, correctly or incorrectly, or maybe not correctly or incorrectly, but what problems could be coming up that we can help you kind of fix. But it's important to have the people that have been doing it for a while and know exactly what they're doing to help you out.
Oh,
So
absolutely. And I think that, having that feedback from a factory trained technician is invaluable. Uh, in the, as we look forward to, developing a plan like that, one of the things you talked about was, how do I get my technicians trained? The best way to do it is to order a preventive maintenance on, on a robot or a series of robots, and have your technicians work with our technicians. I mean, sometimes our technicians can fill in the gaps, where sometimes you don't have enough maintenance personnel. Sometimes you need to get all your robots done at a certain time, and you don't have enough personnel to do that. That's one advantage. But then the other side of that is having a factory trained technician showing your people exactly how we do the preventive maintenance. That way, you can build an internal, you can build a plan for that for your facility.
yeah, and especially on their robots, right? It's a whole different world when it's on their robots at their facility with their people. So
Absolutely,
well,
they know the tools, they know the process, and then and then also, they can ask a lot of questions real time.
okay, great. Excellent. So is there any other information or tips or suggestions that you would want to give that, people might not be thinking about when they're getting ready for this shutdown season, that where we can help out you and your team?
Yeah, I think it's important to, to recognize, first thing you want to do is, you want to go around your controller, know what your servo hours are. That's what we base our services and such on. And if you can look at your robot servo hours on the pendant, and when you know that, you'll know, are we recommending some further services, and that gets into where our extended services take over. Extended services are the annual service, which I touched on, but also they'll replace the internal harness on the robot, and they'll replace the batteries. You have backup batteries in the controller that protect your data, and then you have a backup battery in each robot, or external access that ultimately go out to the encoders and back up their home position. So if those batteries do go bad, and if you don't replace those, then you risk having some downtime due to that, and possibly data loss, or a recovery from from having to rehome a robot, which, unfortunately, if you have to do that, it could end up with some expensive time in reprogramming and downtime.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think that knowing those servo hours, and know if you're due to do some additional services on it, like an internal harness. So if an internal harness fails, um, that can, obviously, that causes the immediate issue is downtime, but it also, if it shorts or something like that, you risk taking out internal controller components, which are both expensive to replace, and obviously, the downtime in diagnosing, those what it is, and getting those parts, and then installing them. So.
Mhm. Great. Well, is there any last minute tips or suggestions before we close out?
No, I think that, if you honestly, if you're unsure, or you want to talk about, a plan, I'd recommend reaching out to your regional technical managers.
Mm-hmm.
That's my role with Yaskawa. What we do is we can custom tailor a plan based on your budget, based on your needs, and what kind of downtime mitigation strategy you need. So that's, we're regionally based, and we can do a conference call, we can do a site visit, anything that, whatever works best, and we can meet with different team members, so that we can help you maximize your automation investment.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time, Trent. Really appreciate it. And looking forward to hearing more from you.
All right. Hey, thanks, Doug.